club has a radio in a great location that can be pretty easily accessed, and Pete will show you some of that software. So that's the radio side of this. Trying to be as little technical as I can be. Pete's going to take over and show you a little bit more about how we make it work and what it looks like.
Would you like to take just a brief break, and if you didn't have your breakfast, we've got sugar bombs over here. So.
What kind of internet connection do you have on the hill?
Okay. What you want? We have a picture. What you want's a good internet connection. Yeah. And the gold standard of a good internet connection is a fixed IP address. But let's
I have pictures of all that.
Okay, let's back off the fixed IP address and just talk about an internet connection. What I have up there is, because I'm in a truly remote location, there is no cable, there is only a very poor commercial service. So I have a cell phone based internet modem called a Cradle Point. Verizon.
There is good cell phone service there.
Oh, yeah. I have 5 bars of 4G LTE because I'm in an oil field, and they use that technology to monitor all the wells. And in this room, the internet connection that we've got going today is 4G LTE off our cell phones. In the right place around here, you get, especially up high, great cell phone based coverage. So I needed a good router. I did pay some extra money to get a fixed IP address, which you can buy as a Verizon customer. What the fixed IP address means is that that internet address that I'm accessing at the remote station is always the same. And that VPN that we set up can be set up with a certainty of knowing who you're calling. There's another technology of that, which is dynamic addressing, and there's a technology where your remote station is, whenever its internet address gets changed, which happens on a cell phone based connection a lot, it calls a place in Sweden, tells it what its new address is, and you access that and get the new address. And 95% of the people who use this remote rig technology use that message board way of finding the new IP address. But for not too much more money, we don't have to fuss with that. But you know, again, it's one of those things. We took an approach when we built this of walk before you run. And you could take the approach of not doing the fixed IP address and see if you can make all the other stuff work. The problem is that it does make it easier to get to where everything works as a first step. I mean, I had everything working with no computer knowledge in a couple minutes at home. Then these guys came and had it all working on a VPN in a painful long afternoon, but everything worked at that point. As soon as you add more variables, you probably get more pain along the way.
Okay.
But yeah, a great router and a fixed IP address is an investment.
Okay.
Ready? Okay. Can we get the lights there? That way it's a little darker in here. If something doesn't work, it's easier for me to deny I was ever in the room. Okay, so the star of the show, unquestionably, in this whole project was really Ashton. He had the interest, he had the cabin. He also comes equipped with a turbocharged, water-cooled checkbook that was used during the process of assembling the different pieces here. And this is a shot of Ashton, one of my favorite ones here, of him operating there at the cabin. I call this the GQ of CQ. There with this blue Gatorade, blue headphones, and blue shirt, and blue eyes. We took that one out of the cabin about a year ago when Phil was out there and we were looking at his new Mosley and stuff. So we'll just lead in with that. But make no mistake, Ashton was really the guy that made all this happen. I was simply involved from the point of view of putting the water through the pipe and doing some of the network engineering. Okay, and as far as the networking goes, everybody's heard that joke about the guy, you ask him what time it is, and he tells you how to build a watch. So I want to avoid that trap today, and I'll cover a little bit of the networking, but I want to focus more on the radio and the rig than the networking. Eric's here, Frank's here, I'm here. I'm sure there's some other guys here that are familiar with VPNs and can help you get it set up if you're interested in that. But I don't want to dwell so much on the plumbing as I do on the radio stuff. Okay? So we'll proceed ahead and get on to the first little bit here. VPNs come in basically two flavors, and we have both of them actually running here today. The Cadillac version, which is what Ashton has, allows his entire home network complete to talk to everything at the cabin. And altogether, what have you got, 10 or 12 boxes now, Ashton, that all talk to each other? The antenna switch, yeah, the router boxes, quite a bit of that stuff. That's really, if you really want to get into this and you can afford it, you want to do a full LAN-to-LAN VPN because it lets every network device talk to every other network device. So you've got complete control of everything. This was a shot we took last year when this is the tower that big-ass Mosley's on. I forget how high it goes. Ashton, what is it, 70-foot tower? What is it?
68 or something.
Something or other. Okay. But anyways, I put this little slide together for the club to just kind of get you guys thinking about, why would a guy want to do remote rig HF? Why would you want to control your rig from somewhere else? Well, if you live in Manhattan, they're not going to let you put a Mosley on top of your penthouse, more than likely, any more than they're going to let you have a big gulp soda in New York City because the mayor doesn't think these things are a good idea. So,
And in the last week, I've been in touch with a guy in New York who has a Mosley on his rooftop of his penthouse.
send a picture.
Donald Trump.
But
He wants to put a quarter wavelength 80-meter vertical up now.
So, anyways, it does offer some advantages because, depending on where you live, they may or may not let you put up an antenna. This technology, because of the internet now, you can run a remote rig in Australia, New Zealand. It really doesn't matter where this stuff is. It just matters that you and them have an internet connection that's relatively high speed, and you can start operating equipment remotely. And as far as the sideband stuff goes in voice, we've learned through experimentation that the latency for voice is not really a consideration. It works pretty fast. We haven't really had any latency issues. Ashton's the only one that's messed with the CW, and he said that on the CW the latency isn't too bad either. But I haven't experimented with that. So, is that basically true? The CW is okay?
Oh yeah, CW is fine, and for people who may want to test that, you're welcome to drop by my place after this and I'm looking at Stan, if you want to give it a go.
I think I have the next slide here is a picture of basically Ashton's Cadillac setup. Yeah, this is what it looks like. The left-hand side here is basically Ashton's location in Carbondale, and he goes out over the internet over a Comcast cable modem and comes back in at the cabin with a Cradle Point. Cradle Point is the manufacturer of the box, and it uses Verizon's LTE connection with a static IP address, which is this number here, and that allows all these devices here to talk to all the devices at the cabin. And as he adds more equipment and builds out the different devices, he could add in a webcam, for example, to look out the window to see if the antenna's pointed the way you think it is. And you can have remote thermometers plugged into the network. This is the Kenwood we remotely control. And this little box over here is the magic that makes all the good stuff happen, this RRC 1258. This box here at the cabin talks to its identical image box over here, and Ashton's at his office in Carbondale, and he operates this box, which operates this box that drives the Kenwood, and we'll show that to you. But these boxes are the key. And when these two boxes can see each other on essentially the same network, which is what this does, they operate really well. And if money's no object, these are the boxes you want to have, Stan. If you want to operate CW or join the party, you can have one of these boxes here, Stan, as well as one of these Cisco VPN routers in Aspen, and you could join the party. We would just simply add you into this whole thing, and you could join the party and start operating the equipment remotely.
Think of the boxes as being 4 or 5 tunnels through the internet that are just tunnel to tunnel. And one of those tunnels is the radio control, and another of those tunnels is the CW connection, and another of those tunnels is the audio connection, and another tunnel that is available in those boxes is running an amp. I don't have that up and going yet, or turning an antenna rotor, and I'll have a different solution for that. But so you get packaged in 2 boxes. You get 4 or 5 tunnels right through the internet that are almost like fiber optic. You know, you look down one side and you see out the other side. So,
anyways, so this is the Cadillac. If money's no object and you've got a lot of stuff and you want to make it all play together, this is the way you do it. You do it with a full bore LAN-to-LAN VPN and join the party and knock yourself out. So Ashton spent a lot of money on this box here, and he actually rolled the dice and spent a lot of money, because as most stuff with wireless goes, as you all know in the room, you don't know how this stuff is going to work at the cabin until you buy the box and you stick it in up there and turn it on and see if it works. And so Ashton rolled the dice and we got lucky, and this box works beautifully up there. It's very, very fast. 4G LTE, and it's got a static IP address, so we always know where it is, which is to say we always know where the cabin is on the internet.
What it's made for, the main customer of these boxes is cash machines. So all the cash machines that are located out around the world are connected in through these boxes. So they're really suited to fixed IP addresses, and they have great 24/7 reliability.
So the next thing I want to show you here in the presentation, and this is, in my mind, one of the coolest things that Ashton has going at his cabin. This kind of still blows my mind in terms of how cool this is. You'll see the radio here, okay, in a couple of minutes, but what I want to show you next is this remote control antenna switch. And what I did here is I have this little computer. I connected it to the VPN, and there it is. Okay, so here is the remote control antenna switch operated from a browser. And Ashton, all he has to do is click on one of these buttons, and he can change the antenna that the remote radio is hooked to. So if he wants to work Europe off the Moseley, he goes click and chooses the Moseley at the top. If he wants an 80-meter vertical, he goes down to number 6 and goes click with his browser, and that switches the other antenna to the radio. So he's got full remote control of his entire antenna farm out there, and he can hook up any of these antennas remote to the one radio he's got out there that he's operating. So I think that's pretty amazing that you can do that. And how much was that antenna switch box? What
Less than the DX Engineering normal switch box. So at this point, and it's beautifully built. At this point, I would say if you're buying a multiple antenna switch of any sort, you can run this in a home. You don't need to be remote. It does have to be run off a browser, but it's a 10-position antenna switch, stainless steel housing, takes everything to ground when they're all turned off. It's just and this was the easiest thing of all of the things to get going.
So, one word of caution on this, which Ashton and I kind of discovered as we went along. We didn't actually make the mistake, which is good. But if you hook up a radio in a linear amplifier remotely, you better make darn sure you got one of these antennas in line when you key it up, or you could have a whole nother issue. So operationally, you have to get used to a certain procedure. So when you turn the radio on, make sure an antenna's hooked up. For God's sakes, particularly if you've got a big alpha amplifier out there, you want to make sure that the pieces are right. One of the other issues we're working through with Phil, talking about too, was at the end of the day, what is the best way to disconnect the antennas because of lightning? How can you best do that remotely? And it's still being discussed, I think, in terms of what the best way is.
Well, can you protect from keying, when you key, can it do a check first to see that there's an antenna connected?
Yeah, all the modern radios do. It's not the best thing to do to your radio to work for. First off, when you connect into the radio, you can hear whether you're attached to an antenna, by and large, and it's a pretty easy. Most of us disconnect our antennas from our radios when we're not using them anyway, I think. So it's a pretty easy discipline to translate into this.
So, anyways. Okay. So
But there are ways to control rotors on this system, and there's ways to switch antennas. And so far, what I'm set up with is I've just left an antenna on Asia, an antenna on Europe, and an antenna on South America, and I just switch. That's the contest setup anyway.
So, yeah, but being able to switch between those antennas is huge. I mean, if you're, 40 meters is going good, you want to switch over to 80 or whatever, you just go click with your browser, switch the antenna, and you keep going. And it's pretty amazing when you get all that stuff set up. But the Cadillac setup that Ashton has here is definitely what you want. If you want to operate a lot of different devices, remote control, you've got to go with the full LAN-to-LAN VPN. Okay, this is a good picture of what this magic box is. This little box here does all the work and all the magic. In Ashton's case, he has two of these boxes. They're identical. One lives in Carbondale at his home office, and the other one lives out of the cabin. And you can see from the picture here, this little box will control a selection of different type of rig radios. Okay, it's made to work with different radios that have serial interfaces and that sort of thing. Stan, you can see the paddles here. This is something that you could invest in if you wanted to from Aspen. You'd have a little rig like this. This is probably the best way to do it, and then VPN into the cabin, and then you could operate that way. But this gives you can see the microphones plugged into this box here too. Would be basically what the setup would look like basically at the cabin, because the radio has to be hooked to this device at the cabin, and then you control this device from the other device back in Carbondale. Okay, but this is the key box for operating the radio, and it is generic. It will work with different model radios besides just the Kenwoods that we have.
Well, this is a
today.
picture of the control end. The control end, which is at your home, has the key and the microphone. In this case, rather than use a computer to steer the remote radio, this is the Elecraft solution where you have that dummy radio.
So
In my setup, I have a computer instead of the radio.
yeah, there's more than one way to skin a cat, but these are the kinds of pieces you would buy and invest in and put together to do different things. Okay?
What's up in the upper left-hand corner?
Just a speaker. Just a speaker. You know, PC speaker.